Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name is Marin Pastar. I'm a global technology leader for vertical information modeling, as well as a digital delivery director and global principal for digital twins at Jacobs. And Janeane?
Yeah, hi, I'm Janeane Giarrusso. I'm a co-leader with Jennifer Mims over Jacobs USA Asset Management Group. And one of the key benefits of being in that position is I get to interact with a lot of different organizations and gain that cohesive understanding of what works, what doesn't work. And on today's specific topic, we have some things to share with you. Asset information strategy, I'm super passionate about this. I've seen this over my 24 years of experience and kind of working in this space, that organizations, and in particular in the aviation space, are very keen on getting tools off the shelf, right? We focus on the technology first. But when you start to look at successful implementations and failed implementations coming in to help organizations or help them start from the beginning, one thing that's central is, we all know the phrase, right? Poor data in is poor data out. So having a very strong information strategy while you're going down this digital transformation path or continuing down it is absolutely critical. What we're showing here, as we all know, is data and information is being developed at all phases of the asset lifecycle. So we've got a lot of stuff coming at us. In the ideal space, it's all arranged and providing us with those reports and those metrics that we really need to inform decision making. So on the next slide, what we are highlighting here, that we have information coming in through the asset onboarding process, which is on the left. We've got data that could be being collected out in the field. And ideally, we've got these dashboards of information that are tailored to individuals throughout the organization who need them, who need those information. So the key to that, of course, is having this well-defined hierarchy, how you organize your data, and those standards behind it, what information and attributes you need. When you have that all tightly knitted, then when you're setting up your digital tools to help onboarding or to help data field collection, it's very tight and cohesive and coming at you in an organized way. Next slide, Marin. So an asset information strategy, when we look at industry standards, what is it typically comprised of? Is first of all, identifying what data and information you need, right? What are those metrics? What is the information that supports calculating those metrics? Then you take a look at the asset information standards, right? What are those standards? What's the format? Think of your onboarding process. You get information in all different formats. If you tell contractors how you need it, they're delivering it to you in that streamlined way. Governance, whose roles and responsible throughout the organization for ensuring the integrity of the data, and then what systems do you use? Are they tied together? Are they can staff access the information they need? So as part of an information strategy, thinking through all these components is critical. And the last slide for me before I toss it over to Marin is the common challenges that I've seen, that we've seen within our industry, is identifying the right data. So when we talk about attributes, those details about the assets that inform decision making, there seems to be a low starting point for a lot of of understanding what is the data to calculate those metrics and making that tie. Data analytics, having someone who's analytic, who's actually interpreting that data. Roles and responsibilities for managing data and working in the aviation space and the organizations I've interacted with, that is always a challenge. It's just saying who's responsible and where are those master data sources, and then that onboarding process that is so painful for so many industries, but nailing that down is another challenge. But knowing these key challenges then paves the way for Marin. I'm going to let you talk about those critical steps for digital transformation before we see some examples.
All right. Well, thank you, Janeane. Appreciate it. Forgot to mention when I was doing my introduction, I'm a licensed architect, and I delivered a lot of projects in my past life before I moved to digital. And in my own practice of delivering projects, I saw that this very metric that I'm showing here is painfully true, right? More than 95% of all the data in any capital project delivery, which is the phase where we're defining all those assets, but 95% of all data from design, construction, through handover into operations goes completely unused. So that's all of your O&M manuals, commissioning reports, BIM models, drawings, everything that we work so diligently to produce never gets used in the past design and construction. And that's unfortunate because, again, we all know that that's very critical data that can be leveraged to streamline the facility management operations and the asset management phase of the kind of the operational phase of the projects. So again, for every one of you, you probably in your organizations, you probably have and manage a lot of this type of information for your facilities. So you probably get at every project some sort of 3D BIM files of all your projects, the accurate as-built or as designed BIM models and kind of spatial information about your projects. You probably also get a lot of information about, the model manufacturer, all the kind of the asset information that can and should be tied back to the BIM models, if you will, and the O&M manuals, so all the information that typically you request through handover. And you're typically, everybody's operating some sort of a CMMS system, be it Maximo, Archibus, whatever, doesn't really matter. But what I'm trying to bring up over here is, think about all the other systems that get integrated throughout this entire process, all the kind of the IoT, the sensory systems. So all those assets that are actually reporting information and you can gather data from, all of these systems exist and you all manage them. And now manage if you combine all of that data together, what type of operational efficiency you would be getting in everything in one place. You truly are kind of creating, and again, I mentioned one of my passions is digital twins, and I know next week's presentation is probably going to talk a lot about it. But again, if you did federate all that information into one platform, you could have a lot of different types of use cases for all that data. First of all, you could simulate a lot of different types of scenarios for your assets and make sure that you have those asset insights to operate your facilities efficiently. And again, you're able to access all that information digitally, which is really, really critical because, again, one study shows that a typical facility manager spends about 5 hours a day actually doing their job and 3 hours a day trying to locate assets or information about their assets. So imagine having all that at their fingertips in the field in a digital format where they can get access to it in a seamless type of fashion. And like I mentioned, you can monitor the performance and streamline that access of all that information inside the CMMS systems and inside different types of ERP platforms. Again, you can really streamline the operations and maintenance process, creation of work orders, executing work orders, and having all that information readily available. And through those live IoT devices and sensors that many of your assets already have, you can monitor the performance, gather those insights. And again, you'll learn next week about AI as well. There's a lot of predictive analytics that can be happening that can be analyzing all that data about operations and putting it into good use. Likewise, again, there's a lot of different types of when you layer that spatial information and asset information and CMMS and all these different types of things together, you can create a lot of different awareness for a lot of different types of use cases for different types of end users. So again, an end user may be a facility manager, maybe real estate, maybe IT, maybe security, but it may be your visitors, it may be the travelers, right? There's a lot of different use cases when you bring that information together. If you control access to the data, what you can create. So a lot of these types of augmented platforms, rather through your cell phones or your iPads or any different types of ways that you can display all that data. And all this sounds great, right? But the problem is, how do you get to that point of where you can layer all that together? And again, we all kind of want to always start at the very end. And a lot of organizations, they want to develop solutions, right? They see some sort of solutions and they want to be developing digital twins, developing asset management systems or whatnot. But that's not the way to start. The way to start is really truly looking at what are you trying to solve? What problem are you trying to solve? How does this align with the core of what your business does, right? And then you start going through this whole process of digital transformation, of defining the deliverables that's going to enable you align with that business case, defining the key performance indicators that would designate, are you being successful? Are you succeeding in this effort, right? Then you look at your existing technology, your new technologies, and aligning technologies that ultimately support that business case. You have to identify champions, both internal and external stakeholders that will help you along the way. Then you're looking for ways to connect all that data, like I said earlier, to make sure, again, that you're performing as you envisioned very early on. And then you go into developing those solutions, evaluating those solutions, and probably going back to this kind of cyclical process of improvement. And this is what digital transformation is about. So, but unfortunately, like I said, a lot of organizations fall for that pitfall of jumping to technologies first, unfortunately. And 70%, some metric is 70% approximately of all digital transformation efforts fail. And they fail for one of three primary reasons. Either number one, they haven't identified the right stakeholders, because this is organization wide. So we got to make sure to align again the entire organization and what you're trying to achieve, and make sure that you have the right stakeholder support and representation in this process, right? The other very common pitfall is trying to do too much and too fast. You may have a very analog process of how you do things right now with very analog tools or manual tools, and you want to go into augmented reality with head-mounted devices and leveraging AI to do things right off the bat, right? Likelihood is, if your organization is not ready for that, you may fail, right? And then again, that last pitfall, which is very, very common, you may see some new technology, you may see a presentation about a great piece of software, and you may go in and say, hey, I really want that for my organization. Well, you need to evaluate to make sure, does that technology align with what you're trying to achieve? And oftentimes it doesn't. And again, you go through a lengthy process of implementations, a lot of different effort, a lot of millions of dollars spent, and then it doesn't work and you fail. So that's why this journey is an absolutely critical part of the process we there's a lot to unpack there that we can't cover in just a few minutes today, but there's a lot to be said about the process of identifying the problem we're trying to solve. So sort of
Go on to the next slide. Can you go back to the last slide?
This one or this one?
This right, there we go. This is the different way of saying use ISO 55001. Establish the business case. What's the objectives? What are you measuring? Who are the stakeholders? So I just, it's clear to me that this is followed right along with ISO 55001, but I wanted to really hammer that home. So thank you for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, and unfortunately, there's no shortcuts. If you go through shortcuts, you may be falling for a statistic, unfortunately.
Yes,
and that's why
exactly.
It's a lengthy process. And I typically tell clients, somebody can't just do this for you. They can help you along this journey, but it will take your organization's blood, sweat, and tears to go through this process and to be truly successful and to harness all the efficiencies that you can achieve afterwards. So
Yes,
again, yeah, absolutely. And the summary of kind of a few things of how to get started, what you absolutely need to consider going through this process. Number one is the digital strategy and roadmap, understanding what type of deliverables, what you're trying to achieve, what's your vision for kind of that end state, right? Clearly define that end state, and then look into a roadmap. What makes sense to implement when? Because going all in all at once, again, that's that problematic area where you may fail, right? So having a clearly executed strategy and roadmap is critical. Then again, like Janeane was saying, look, going through the asset management strategy standards. Are you tracking the right things? How are you currently executing? Because understanding what you currently do and how it aligns with your vision and what needs to be improved, and making sure that you have the right type of standards for operations and management before you jump into that process, right? And then looking into, on the previous stage, on the capital project delivery stage, looking into, do I have the standards, the right type of standards to deliver those assets to begin with? So design and construction combined together into this kind of a life cycle execution plan, and digital standards for your architects, engineers, contractors, trades, your supply chain, everybody that procures capital projects. Are they delivering the right information that you need in the format that you need it, right? And then more often than not, even if you have the right definition of what you need, well, how about your architects, engineers, contractors, and everybody else? Do they have contracts and contractual requirements that are saying the same thing what you're expecting? Because you may be expecting to receive something, but unless those contracts say the same thing and align, you may be getting something very different than what you're expecting. And that's a very, very common problem that we see on a lot of different projects that we try to resolve early on, right? And again, even if you implement everything right, and you get these digital twins at the end, tied to your asset management, how are you going to sustain it? Your physical environment changes. Your digital environment should evolve along with it as well. So having those clear sustainment plans of how can you maintain these types of platforms and information to make sure that they're relevant, more than 6 months after handover, right? And then your organizational change management plans, right? You're going to throw all these brand new tools at your staff and everybody in your organization. Are they ready for it? How are you going to train them, support them, show them why is this important? Why? How is this going to make their life easier, right? Otherwise, they're going to take that iPad, throw it out the window, and they're going to go back to doing things exactly how they used to before you gave them all these great tools that can save a lot of their time, right? So again, as you look at your asset information strategy, standards, the data information management, and the systems and the tools you're applying, consider the three most important things. How does every one of those aspects of asset information affect your people? How does it affect the current processes that you have in place to manage it? And how does it affect the technology that you currently have? And do you have the provisions for technology you need to do it in the future? So I'll leave it at that. That was just, like I said, a very brief overview of a very, very important topic that we can talk for a lot longer than this.